The defending champs look to bounce back on home ice, while the Jets and their goalie look to even up the series. We've got Stanley Cup playoff action to talk about right now on Locked On NHL Game Night.
When that final horn sounds, you know it's time for Locked On NHL Game Night. All the post-game reactions to every game across the league, every single night, with insights only the hosts at Locked On can provide. Prepare to experience game day reactions like never before, only on Locked On NHL Game Night. Your team every day.
Hey, hockey fans, welcome to Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Thanks for making Locked On NHL Game Night your place to get a recap of the night in the NHL. We are available 7 days a week, wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $200 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. I'm Eddie Garcia, an LA Kings fan on the West Coast. He is Shukri Wrights, a Boston Bruins fan on the East Coast. Together, we are here to discuss all the goals, saves, big moments, and stories from the night in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Shu, we had two more games on Friday. One of them kind of one-sided, but the other, another overtime thriller.
What's going on, everybody? Listen, you couldn't possibly have thought that this was going to be an easy run-of-the-mill, take a lead and just not relinquish it, right? Right? You had pushback, and now we got ourselves a series.
Well, let's start with the game that you're talking about, and that was Game 3 between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the defending Stanley Cup champions, the Florida Panthers, the Atlantic Division champs against the number 3 seed in the Atlantic. Leafs came in with a 2-0 series lead, taking the first two games on home ice. They won Game 1 5-4, took the second game 4-3. In this Game 3, the champs were down 3-1 in this game, scored 3 straight goals in the second period to grab a 4-3 lead. Leafs get a goal in the third, and we would head to overtime, where the Panthers get a 5-4 win on a Brad Marchand game winner in sudden death. We'll get Shu's reaction on that as a Boston Bruins fan, but let's get a report first from our very excited host of Locked On Florida Panthers.
The Panthers are still alive. What is up, guys? Armando Velez here from the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, here to quickly break down the Panthers' 5-4 overtime win against the Toronto Maple Leafs in Game 3 of the second round, where the Florida Panthers struggled with the Toronto Maple Leafs rush attack, and even in parts of this game where they were down 2-0. They were also down 3-1. 3 second period goals had them go into the third with the lead, and there were so many goals off of deflections, one off of Gustav Forsling, one off of Seth Jones in the third period to tie the game at 4. But after the 10-minute mark in overtime, the Panthers started controlling play, and Brad Marchand delivers with the OT winner to give the Panthers life and to at least force the Game 5 and to win on home ice. You're not in trouble until you lose at home, but the Panthers found a way. We're going to break all this down and more on tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Your team every day.
And thanks to the very excited Armando Velez of Locked On Florida Panthers for that report. I hate to see what he was like after they won the Stanley Cup. But look, he deserves to be excited. That was a huge win for the defending champs. But I did want to get into with you on this, as I saw Elliot Friedman post on social media. Brad Marchand has 12 goals and 21 assists in 31 playoff games against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Shu, most of those came when he was playing for your Boston Bruins, so you saw a lot of this up close and personal. Yeah. So not a surprise that Brad Marchand sinks the Maple Leafs, at least in this game.
Oh, not at all. I wasn't surprised. If anything else, you could pretty much call Brad Marchand the David Ortiz of the NHL when it comes to dominating a particular team in the postseason. Now, for people that are in New England and baseball fans, once upon a time, David Ortiz used to literally dominate the New York Yankees come October. Brad Marchand is doing that and has been doing that for years, going back to when he was a Boston Bruin, which was not that long ago, against the Toronto Maple Leafs. So for him to score the game-winning goal in tonight's game in overtime against the Toronto Maple Leafs, it was really more of like a, man, are you kidding me? In terms of all people, Brad Marchand, and it's funny because seeing Paul Bissonnette's reaction on TNT, it literally just spoke volumes. And you saw the reaction from Leaf fans, Brad Marchand again, even in a different uniform. Like, I mean, it was just like, wow, unbelievable. But what I will say is this. Marchand has had a knack for coming up huge in the postseason in his career, going back to when he was a Boston Bruin. But you got to also look at the bigger picture outside of just Brad Marchand. The Florida Panthers knew they couldn't afford to fall behind 3-0 in this series. And the reality is this. The Panthers, they've had their chances in games number 1 and games number 2 in Toronto. They could not hold on for dear life. And listen, the Maple Leafs, they stormed ahead in this game 3-1, and it looked like that the Maple Leafs were going to dominate in game number 3, which they did for a considerable chunk until the ties turned in that fateful second period for the Florida Panthers, where they were able to finally get their game going in terms of finding offense, taking advantage of opportunities, and finally cracking the code that is just Joseph Woll. I mean, it seemed like you was playing against the Great Wall of Toronto, but not anymore. But that second period, I'm telling you, it was everything that the Panthers absolutely needed, but it was truly a very important boost for the Panthers in terms of confidence going into game number 4.
Still waiting for Matthew Tkachuk to kind of show up and do his thing, but there were some big guns that did show up for the Florida Panthers. Yeah. Alexander Barkov got a goal, Sam Reinhart got a goal, and of course Brad Marchand gets a goal as well. And Armando talked about it, a lot of weird goals in this game.
Yeah.
4 goals, 2 for the Leafs, 2 for the Panthers, go off of players and past their own goalie, including the game winner. It goes off of Leafs defenseman Morgan Riley. So that's one thing about hockey. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of luck, but it's also you got to make your own luck, right? That's why it's so important to get shots and bodies to the net, because when you can do that consistently, a lot of times you will earn that puck luck. And certainly both teams had it a little bit in this one, but specifically Toronto getting that goal off of their player and into the net. I did, though, want to talk about a guy who is paid to keep the puck out of the net, and that is Sergei Bobrovsky. I thought he had a bounce-back game in this one, particularly in the overtime. I thought he played really well, made some key saves. And, you know, when you look at the 2 goaltenders, Sergei Bobrovsky obviously won a Stanley Cup. He's been around. He's done that. You would think the advantage in net would go to Florida. I thought in the overtime, despite the bad luck for Toronto, I thought Bobrovsky was definitely the better goalie.
He certainly was. Make absolutely no mistake about it. You know what's interesting is that Sergei Bobrovsky, he has had a track record of coming up huge in the playoffs, and you needed Bobrovsky to find his game again, because he did look shaky in the first 2 games in Toronto. But in tonight's game, I thought that he was absolutely huge in terms of making the timely saves that he needed to make, and on top of that, especially when this game got to overtime and you knew that Toronto was going to come out surging, it was as if Bobrovsky was just calm and confident and comfortable, especially the further along the game went, even though that this was a night to forget for both goaltenders. But however, I thought that Bobrovsky certainly was the better goaltender in this game, especially from the halfway point of the second period on. He definitely dominated and definitely played better, I should say, as the game went along. And certainly, I do think that they're going to need more of that in game 4 if the Panthers are going to look and hope to tie the series up at 2 apiece.
You mentioned it for Toronto. They got off to the start they wanted. They scored 23 seconds into the game. Matthew Nyes with a goal. They had a 2-0 lead. Kind of took the crowd out of it early, but they couldn't sustain it. They had 12 shots on goal in the opening period, a total of 19 the rest of the game, second, third, and overtime. John Tavares did have a couple of goals, including a beautiful wraparound goal. Austin Matthews, though, still no goals in the series. He had 2 assists in the game, but I thought for most of this game, he was pretty quiet for large chunks of it. Obviously, that's something that the Leafs need to rectify. You mentioned Anthony Stolarz, or I mentioned Anthony Stolarz, not making the trip to Florida. Joseph Woll had to start in game 3. He will have to start in game 4 as well, again, with Stolarz not on the trip. 5 goals allowed on 36 shots, so he'll have to be a little bit better, and a little bit more, I would think, from Austin Matthews going forward as well.
Oh, absolutely. And you need Austin Matthews to get going offensive, because guess what? Florida, good news for you. Sam Reinhart and Carter Verhaeghe were nails tonight, and they scored on both their goals respectively, 64 seconds apart, tying the game up at 3. So if Sam Reinhart and Carter Verhaeghe are going to get going offensively and really put their imprint on this series with games 3 and 4 in Florida, you need Austin Matthews to show up offensively in terms of putting the puck in the back of the net at some point. So good news for Florida. Reinhart and Verhaeghe were critical in tonight's win in overtime, but the Leafs, they're going to need Matthews. They're going to absolutely need more in terms of offensive production from their top guns as well. If you're the Toronto Maple Leafs.
So I said after the Panthers are down 2-0, I didn't expect the defending champs to panic. They were down 2-0 in this game. They still didn't panic. Huge win for Florida. A very experienced postseason group. I thought it showed in game number 3. So Toronto still has the 2-1 lead in the series. So far, the home team has won every game so far, and each game has been decided by 1 goal. So a very competitive, fun series so far. Game 4 will be Sunday again in Florida. Has Connor Hellebuyck found his mojo? We are talking Jets Stars Game 2 next on Locked On NHL Game Night. Hey, did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices, no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign into Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 2025 to Call of Duty Black Ops 6 and Avowed, as easy as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With 4K streaming, watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite subscribed services like Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus Max, and more. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and comparable controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, we had another game on Friday. It was game 2 between the Winnipeg Jets and the Dallas Stars. This one north of the border, top team in the West, your President's Trophy winners, Central Division champs taking on the 3rd place team in the Central. Dallas took game 1 in Winnipeg 3-2 behind the natural hat trick from Mikko Rantanen. Game 2, this one was all Winnipeg Jets. They get the 4-0 shutout win. Let us hear a report from our host of Locked On Winnipeg Jets.
After the Game 1 defeat to the Dallas Stars, I said I wasn't worried about the Jets at all. I wasn't going to panic, and boy, oh boy, did Winnipeg reward my faith. Harrison Lee from Locked On Winnipeg Jets here, coming to you right after a big 4-0 shutout of the Dallas Stars at home. The Jets have evened the series 1-1, and more importantly, they did it in a variety of ways. The power play scored, even strength play was great, and the Jets had a very strong penalty kill. And most importantly, perhaps above all else, Connor Hellebuyck absolutely threw down the gauntlet with a sterling performance in net. Some huge saves, incredible moments, and everyone goes home happy. Other shout-outs, of course, Nikolai Ehlers putting on an absolute clinic for a multi-goal performance. Hayden Fleury locking it down with Colin Miller on the 3rd pairing. The Jets, just from top to bottom, put together a very strong game. Wasn't always perfect, but it didn't have to be. And now Winnipeg is in the driver's seat to potentially come away with a lead on Sunday. We'll have more coverage next week, so see you then. Have a great night, and as always, go Jets go.
All right, thanks to Harrison Lee, the host of Locked On Winnipeg Jets. I'm not sure I'm quite as there with him as far as being ready to take control of the series, but I will agree with him. I thought Connor Hellebuyck did come up with some really big saves. He absolutely robbed Evgeny Dadonov with a huge save in the 2nd period. That was very, very good. I said on our last show that he needed to be a difference maker for the Jets if this team was going to go anywhere this postseason. I would say this performance was encouraging. He stopped all 22 shots he saw, but I know you feel the same way. We need to see more from Connor Hellebuyck before we're ready to believe that he's suddenly the goaltender that he needs to be this postseason.
Absolutely, and that's part of the reason why, look, tonight Hellebuyck had a shutout, and this was his best playoff performance thus far. And by the way, it was his first playoff shutout in 4 years. And the thing is this, as far as tonight's game is concerned, Hellebuyck was exactly what the Winnipeg Jets needed. in terms of bouncing back from. It wasn't a bad performance in game number one. It wasn't even his fault that Winnipeg lost game one, despite the fact that, yes, he did allow all three Mikko Rantanen's goals. Obviously, he had the hat trick, but the team actually came out flat in game number one. Game number two, they look like the Winnipeg Jets of the regular season. And I got to start with Nikolai Ehlers, who had 2 goals in this game, in which that Ehlers was absolutely problematic in terms of being an unstoppable force against the Dallas Stars. And obviously, like, Gabriel Velarde and Adam Lowry were also key in this game. But I do think that the big story tonight is certainly Hellebuyck, is that he had given 26 goals under heavy duress against the St. Louis Blues, and he was pulled for 3 straight road games. But tonight, he looked like he was in control. He was absolutely comfortable in between the pipes. He was seeing the pucks well, and he was able to to just take over. And it gave the guys in front, basically in front of him, confidence, and it showed. And it showed in how they played in terms of the power play. Velarde, he had the power play goal 3.5 minutes into the game, and I think that they need more of that moving forward. They're going to absolutely need that. And now the big test, Dallas, on the road at American Airlines Center in Dallas, beginning on Sunday. Can he repeat the same performance he had in game 2? That's where I need to see him before I even make any sort of proclamation that he is fully back. But tonight was certainly very encouraging as well.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. As far as did the Dallas Stars do enough to put pressure on Connor Hellebuyck in this one, let's get a report on the Dallas Stars from our host of Locked On Stars.
Dallas Stars lay an egg in Game 2 as the Winnipeg Jets even the series at 1 game apiece, heading to Dallas for Game 3. And the Stars were out of sync from the jump in this one tonight. They took way too many unnecessary penalties, which allowed Winnipeg to get into a rhythm. And it was very reminiscent of a lot of the games during the regular season between these two teams. Winnipeg got off to a quick start. They get up, they hold on to a lead, and they really just suffocate the Stars offensively. Dallas did create quite a bit. Connor Hellebuyck was great, probably his best game by far in the Stanley Cup playoffs so far, but not overly worried about Dallas for whatever reason. Stars usually lay an egg in 1 game in each series. It was Game 4 in the first round against Colorado, but they have to find some answers, and they're going to certainly have to be better because not a lot of life, not a lot of jump, and Winnipeg made him pay for it in Game 2.
And thanks to Joey Erickson, the host of Locked On Dallas Stars, for that report. And I think he was right. Certainly not getting off to a good start didn't help, but 7 shots on goal in the first period, 9 in the second, only 5 in the third period, a total of 21. And when you're going up against a goalie who, yes, he's been pretty good at home, but certainly his confidence is an issue. Obviously, you got to put more pressure on him than that, and that just didn't happen for the Dallas Stars.
I agree, but here's what's even more baffling, Eddie. The Stars have a bad pattern of starting late. They're not a team that starts on time, and it's just been probably one of the few major issues with this Dallas Stars team this postseason is that slow starts have become a theme. You know what's interesting also? They only have had 3 first-period goals in 9 playoff games entering tonight. That's not going to get it done. You talk about starting on time, like you need your guys to force the issue early on instead of like playing back, and that's something that's gonna have to change, especially as the series shifts back home for the Dallas Stars. But then also, you know what's interesting too, Eddie, is that Mikko Rantanen was absolutely a non-factor in this game. Here's the good news in terms of Rantanen. His streak of assisting on 12 consecutive Dallas Star goals is still intact. The issue is that they didn't score in game number 2. So you're going to need Rantanen to continue to be a factor in offensively for the Stars, which I'm confident he could be in game number 3. But I think the big issue for the Stars is starting on time, and that's something that they're going to have to absolutely change if they're going to beat Winnipeg in the series.
Yeah, Mikko Rantanen leading the postseason with 8 goals and 15 points, but obviously silent in game 2 with his team not getting any goals. No points for him. He was a -2, just 1 shot on goal from Mikko
Yeah.
Rantanen in this game. So the Jets even up the series at 1-1. We've got game 3 coming up on Sunday in Dallas. We had controversy in Vegas. Will it carry over to Edmonton? We'll talk about that next here on Locked On NHL Game Night. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot from a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and during the action. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments, and how could tracking their trends help you build your next bet? What would it look like to combine live prop bets mid-game based on how the action unfolds? If you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it up with a same-game parlay? How could a $200 bonus in bets add the excitement if your first $5 bet hits? New to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right, we've got 2 more games coming up in the Stanley Cup playoffs on Saturday. Let's start with the Vegas Golden Knights now moving to Edmonton to take on the Oilers in Game 3 of their series. The Pacific Division champs taking on the number 3 seed in the Pacific. And so far, it's been Vegas in this one, up 2-0, winning the first 2 games on the road. They win Game 1 4-2, take the second game 5-4 in overtime. And some news to pass along involving this series. Nicholas Waugh took that ugly cross-check penalty in Game 2 to the face of Trent Frederick, resulted in a 5-minute major and a game misconduct. He did have a hearing with the Department of Player Safety for that act and did not receive a suspension. He was fined $7,812.50. Don't forget about the 50 cents.
Yeah, of course.
So Nick Waugh will be in the lineup for the Vegas Golden Knights in game number 3. What were your thoughts on that? Did you think he would get a suspension, and were you okay or not with the only the fine and not the suspension?
I thought he was going to be suspended, but I'm more than okay with the fine. The fine doesn't surprise me like whatsoever. It was just absolutely ridiculous to see Waugh like cross-check Frederick. It was just like, why? And like everything was done and called the way that it should have been called. He should have been assessed a major penalty in a game misconduct for cross-checking. Absolutely no issue there. The fine, absolutely no issue there. Suspension, yeah. Did I think he should have been suspended? Sure, yes, absolutely. Am I disappointed that he didn't get suspended? Yeah, because if anything else, and maybe I'm comparing apples to oranges here, but we have to maintain a level of consistency in terms of what's suspendable and what's not suspendable. And I think that's something that that the NHL is going to have to really fix, because I thought the way that the injury it looked nasty. I thought it would warrant a suspension. No issue in terms of the disciplinary actions that were taken against in game and as well as post game with the fine, but I did think it was a suspendable act.
I did as well, and I don't think throwing a guy out of an overtime game where he doesn't even miss a full period of action was enough. Maybe if that had happened in the first period and he misses the whole rest of the game, maybe you could say, well, he kind of got a 1-game suspension because he missed the game. I don't even see that as any kind of a possibility in this. It was such a weird penalty because in that moment in overtime, I mean, you've got to obviously be way more disciplined than that. This was almost just like he just completely lost his composure. It was violent, it was unnecessary, and it was really shocking. Now, Vegas did kill off the 5-minute major, but I thought that it kind of sucked the life out of them because they had to work so hard to kill off that 5-minute major that they didn't end up really having much left for the rest of the way, and they ended up losing that game in overtime. Some good news also for Vegas. Their leading goal scorer in the regular season, Pavel Dorofeev, did travel. He made the trip to Edmonton, so he's with the team. He's yet to play this postseason. He led the team with 35 goals during the regular season. He could be a key addition for the Golden Knights. They haven't said if he's going to play in Game 3 or not, but again, he is on the trip, so we'll have to see if he's in the lineup or not. And everyone's still buzzing, especially in Vegas, about the missed call in overtime. Victor Arvidsson getting his stick in the skates of Braden McNabb. He goes shoulder first into the boards. He gets hurt. He leaves the ice. No power play given to Vegas on that one. We don't know if they would have scored or not. You can't just assume they would have, but they should have been given the opportunity. And we don't know about Braden McNabb for game number 3. They're being quiet about it. They haven't said whether he's going to play or not, so we don't know if he'll be in the lineup or not. That could be a loss, certainly on their blue line, if he's unable to play. So it's already been a very eventful series. It was a very eventful game 2. Bottom line, though, Shu, Vegas has got to move on. I mean, they didn't get the call. They're upset about that. They didn't help themselves out with some things as well. But look, game 3, they were, it's almost a must win, right? You can't go down 3-0. And then you have to play multiple games in Edmonton if you extend the series. So they've got to hit the reset button. They've got to move on and just get past it and focus on game 3.
And that's what they're going to have to do. Like, because listen, I understand the fans' plight and their aggravation and frustration, but the reality is this: the Vegas Golden Knights did themselves absolutely no favors at home in games number 1 and 2 against this Edmonton team, which this Edmonton Oilers team won games 1 and 2 on the road. And I think that like ultimately, when you look back on it, this was like a couple of games of just major opportunities that were missed. We could sit here and talk about the non-call and so forth. And I think that ultimately, if you're Vegas, you got to be a lot better and a lot more stringent defensively. You have to start on time and not allow Edmonton to dictate the pace early on. And I think that's been certainly a problem in games number 1 and 2 for the Vegas Golden Knights. So as this series shifts back to Edmonton for game number 3 Saturday night, I think the biggest question of it all for the Vegas Golden Knights is, can they maintain their composure, especially for an Oilers team that has been red hot at home? And that's something that is going to be really interesting to see how they handle it, especially the first 5 minutes of game 3.
Yeah, the Oilers have yet to lose on home ice this postseason, and I'm still amazed by how they've been able to get it done with their secondary scoring and with their backup goalie, Calvin Pickard, in net. Evander Kane has been huge this postseason for them. Missed the entire regular season, gets dropped into the playoffs, and he's performed like he's been there pretty much all season long. The other game on Saturday, we have the Capitals taking on the Hurricanes. Game number 3, top team in the East, the Metro champs against the number 2 team in the Metro. Carolina wins game 1, 2-1 in overtime. Caps come back for a 3-1 win in game number 2. So now the series shifts down to Tobacco Road. Carolina, one of the best home teams during the NHL. Caps, one of the best road teams. So should be a fun environment down there in Raleigh, North Carolina for game number 3.
It's going to be a lot of fun. And to see those Caniacs all at Lenovo Center in Raleigh, North Carolina, it's going to be fabulous for game number 3 on Saturday. But, like one of the things that I'm most looking forward to seeing in game number 3 is, let me start with the Capitals first, is the physicality and the presence of Tom Wilson in game number 2. I look forward to seeing that carry over into game number 3. We all know that, like, how much of a difference maker Tom Wilson is for this Capitals team, and having a player like him, how it changes the dynamic of a lineup, and as well as how a team defends against him as well. Also, I think that on the Carolina side of things for the Hurricanes, I'm looking forward to seeing how are they going to dictate play. They're going to have to be like puck dominant, especially in terms of the possession for 5 out of the 6 periods so far in the season. They're going to have to continue that in game number 3, especially at home, where I do believe that ultimately it's going to come down to matchups. Remember, Carolina is home now. They're going to have the last change, and what I'm looking forward to seeing from Rod Brind'Amour, the head coach of the Carolina Hurricanes, is how is he going to match up in terms of like the lines against like the Ovechkin on Strome line and so forth, and see how that all plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be a crazy, crazy atmosphere down there in Raleigh, but Washington played some road games in Montreal, so I don't think they're going to be quite in awe of playing in a loud, crazy environment, because they certainly saw that in the first round. They were able to handle it pretty well. Caps goalie Logan Thompson has been the MVP of the series so far for me. 61 shots he's seen. He's stopped 58 of them. He's been great. And another guy, not quite like Evander Kane, but he missed time at the end of the season, got dropped into the playoffs, and was like he had not been injured at all. He's been very strong. So This series so far, low scoring, hard fought games. I expect the same for games 3 and 4, just in
Eddie,
a different location.
One last point too. Special teams. If you're a Hurricanes fan, that has to concern you a little bit, because the one glaring issue that has doomed Carolina in recent postseasons is their special teams, especially the power play. They have to do a better job converting on power play opportunities, and that's something that I think they're going to have to really address starting in Game 3.
All right, we had another fun night of Stanley Cup playoff action on Friday. Looking forward to Saturday's games as well. You got a taste of some of our local experts. Make sure you check out the Locked On Show of your favorite NHL team to get all the latest news and reactions. I'm Eddie Garcia. He's Shukri Wrights. Thanks for listening and watching Locked On NHL Game Night, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day.